Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has issued a statement that goes further than anything Tehran's military establishment has said publicly since the war began. The IRGC declared that the Middle East will not see peace until Israel is destroyed. Reuters reported the statement as an official IRGC message, which is what makes it more than just rhetoric from a fringe voice. The Pasdaran, the elite force that commands Iran's ballistic missile program, its regional militia network, and its naval operations in the Strait of Hormuz, put those words on the record. And they did so on the same day that 2 Hamas commanders were confirmed killed in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza, and barely 24 hours after the United States struck Iranian military installations near the Strait of Hormuz. The IRGC statement went beyond the headline, using language that cast Israel as criminal and illegitimate, though some of the more detailed phrasing is circulating more through regional and secondary reporting than through Reuters itself. The language is not new in the broader Iranian political discourse, but it is significant that it was issued as an official military communique rather than a political speech. Military communiques are often read as signals of intent by forces in the field, allied groups, and adversaries, which is why this one will be watched closely. Whether this statement is a political gesture or a declaration of strategic direction is the question that every intelligence agency in the region is now trying to answer. The IRGC did not stop at Israel. It dedicated an entire section of the statement to the United States and to Donald Trump personally. The statement also attacked Trump personally and dismissed Washington's peace messaging as unserious and violent, though those exact word choices should be attributed to Iranian reporting rather than treated as wire-confirmed phrasing. The statement sharply undercuts the diplomatic track Rubio had still been describing as alive, even if it does not by itself prove the talks are finished. Whether the IRGC speaks for the entirety of Iran's government or represents one faction within it is a distinction that matters, but it is a distinction the statement itself did not make. The IRGC issued it under its own authority and without any visible caveat from the presidency or the foreign ministry. The IRGC's rhetoric did not emerge in a vacuum. Weeks earlier, Trump publicly warned that a whole civilization could die if Iran failed to make a deal, language Reuters reported at the time. That threat, delivered during a press event, was widely reported and widely condemned outside the United States. It was also absorbed inside Iran by a population that had just endured weeks of American and Israeli bombardment. The IRGC's statement reads in part as a mirror of Trump's own language. Trump used civilizational language toward Iran, and the IRGC has now answered with annihilationist language toward Israel. Neither statement is defensible, but the sequence matters because it shows an escalation cycle in which both sides are now using the language of civilizational destruction, each pointing to the other as the one who started it. The statement landed on a day that was already producing military escalation. Israeli strikes in Gaza killed senior Hamas figures in recent days. The United States had struck Iranian military installations near the Strait of Hormuz barely 24 hours earlier, and the ceasefire that was supposed to be in effect was being violated by operations that both sides described as defensive. The IRGC chose to issue its most extreme public statement at the moment when the battlefield and the diplomatic track were moving in opposite directions. Diplomats were talking about a 60-day extension. The IRGC was talking about the permanent elimination of a state. The gap between those two positions is the gap that defines this conflict right now. While the rhetoric escalates at the top, the human cost is accumulating at the bottom, and nowhere is that cost more visible than in Lebanon. The Israeli military has been conducting operations across southern Lebanon under the stated objective of dismantling Hezbollah's infrastructure near the border. But the toll on the civilian population has been devastating. Lebanon's civilian toll has climbed into the thousands, and displacement has exceeded 1 million, with children among the dead in numbers that have drawn international condemnation. The total death toll has climbed into the thousands, though the exact overall figure varies across reporting sources. More than 1.2 million Lebanese have been displaced from their homes. The World Bank documented more than 99,000 Lebanese homes damaged or destroyed. Families that had homes, businesses, and routines are now living in schools, mosques, churches, and improvised shelters. The displacement is not temporary. The areas they fled have been designated by Israel as exclusion zones, areas where civilian return is prohibited and military operations continue. For the population of southern Lebanon, the war is not an abstraction. It is the reason they no longer have a home. Israel has deployed multiple divisions deep into southern Lebanon, expanding the campaign far beyond a narrow border operation. Israeli evacuation orders now extend up to 40 kilometers from the border. That depth means Israel is not conducting a border operation. It is conducting a territorial campaign that has pushed deep into a sovereign country and displaced more than 1 million of its people. The stated target is Hezbollah. The actual footprint covers entire communities, agricultural land, and civilian infrastructure that has nothing to do with the militia. Hezbollah has answered with a sustained mix of rockets and drones into northern Israel, and the front is increasingly defined by unmanned attacks. The attacks have caused casualties and material damage on the Israeli side. Hezbollah has also introduced fiber optic guided drones that have changed the tactical dynamics along the border. These drones appear to be complicating Israeli defenses because they are smaller, more precise, and in some cases less vulnerable to familiar countermeasures. The result is a front that has shifted from conventional rocket exchanges to a hybrid battlefield where precision drone strikes are becoming the primary threat. Israel is adapting, but the adaptation is happening while 5 divisions are deployed inside another country's territory, and the civilian population on both sides of the border is paying the price. The IRGC statement about Israel's destruction did not reference Lebanon specifically, but it does not need to. The images coming out of southern Lebanon, the displacement numbers, the child casualty figures, the destroyed homes are the context in which the IRGC's words land. When the IRGC uses child killer language, it is leaning on the imagery and casualty reporting that have come out of Lebanon and Gaza, even though the most politically charged numbers remain contested. When it says there will be no peace until Israel is destroyed, it is speaking to a regional audience that is watching the footage from Lebanon, from Gaza, and from Iran itself. The statement is extreme, but it is landing on ground that has been prepared by months of images, casualty reports, and displacement data that make the audience more receptive to extreme language than it would have been a year ago. The escalation cycle is now operating on 2 tracks simultaneously. On the rhetorical track, Trump has threatened to erase Iran, and the IRGC has threatened to erase Israel. On the military track, the United States is striking Iranian installations, Israel is operating with 5 divisions inside Lebanon, Hezbollah is firing 1,800 rockets and drones, and Iran is launching strikes tied to U.S. bases in Gulf states. The ceasefire that is supposed to govern the Iran-U.S. dimension of this conflict is being referenced by both sides while neither side observes it, and the diplomatic framework that was supposed to produce a 60-day extension is competing with an IRGC statement that rejects the premise of any deal that leaves Israel intact. The language being used by both sides has crossed a threshold. This is no longer about territory, sanctions, nuclear programs, or shipping lanes. This is about whether entire states and civilizations should continue to exist. Trump used annihilationist language toward Iran, and the IRGC has now used annihilationist language toward Israel, a rhetorical threshold that makes diplomacy harder, even if neither side spells out a formal policy of extermination. The danger of that language is not just that it inflames public opinion, it is that it narrows the space for any diplomat trying to build a framework that requires both sides to accept the other's continued existence. So this is what the day produced. The IRGC issued its most extreme public statement since the war began. It said there will be no peace until Israel is destroyed. It called Israel evil and a child killer. It called Trump reckless and corrupt. It dismissed American peace plans as a policy of death. 2 Hamas commanders were killed in Gaza. The United States had struck Iranian installations near Hormuz the day before. More than 1,450 Lebanese civilians have been killed. More than 1.2 million displaced. Israeli forces are operating with multiple divisions inside Lebanon. Hezbollah has fired large numbers of rockets and drones across the northern front, and both the American president and the Iranian military have now publicly described the other side's existence as something that should be ended. The IRGC's statement is not defensible. No civilizational elimination is. But it did not arrive in silence. It arrived after American strikes, Israeli operations that have killed thousands of civilians, and a presidential threat to end Iran itself. The rhetoric is catching up to the war, and the war is catching up to the rhetoric. The question is no longer whether both sides are willing to negotiate. It is whether the language they are now using has made negotiation impossible.